Disney's Carnotaurus is to this day the most hardcore looking dinosaur villain I have ever seen. Yes, even more than him. A massive theropod that's drastically upscaled from the real life version. It spread terror in the hearts of all the dinosaurs in that movie and even prompted a sudden march the moment Kron got wind that they were in the area. Yep, they surely are something to behold. But with that in mind, how would they fare in the two parks in the Jurassic franchise and the bioengineered monsters disguised as dinosaurs? Well, in this video I'm going to see if Disney's monsters could survive on the islands populated with Wu's hellspawn. We're going to be assessing everything from both parties, including size, experience, terrain compatibility, and all of that good stuff. Before I go into it, I'll say this, which kinda gets annoying at times. I've noticed that not just with my channel but other channels as well, when someone disagrees with what their favorite creators say, they whinge and moan in the comments. For example, let's say that you conclude that Jurassic Park's Spinosaurus beat Sue. Someone in the comments is gonna say, well actually Leroy Titan has said that Sue wins because she can fly and shits pixie dust. Now obviously Sue cannot fly and does not poop pixie dust, I think. And I'm not saying that the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus wins, I'm just giving a random example. The person commenting on why they disagree just regurgitates what their favorite creator says. Like in previous videos, I've asked these type of people why do they think the animal they're talking about wins, and they just say because so and so said this and did a breakdown on that. No independent thought process whatsoever. Look, I'm not saying some analysis aren't right, but for crying out loud, think freely and don't just accept whatever you're told. The same goes for me as well. I make mistakes and you guys call me out for it, which is 100% warranted. I've actually learned and corrected mistakes because of you guys. But if you disagree with something and your only argument is because they said, you've already lost. Sorry about that guys, I just had to do that rant. Don't even know why I did it. Only like 3% of people in the comments behave like that. But hey, if you want to have discussions about anything prehistoric or even enter art competitions, join the Discord in the description. And while you're at it, consider hitting that subscribe button. With that whole mess out of the way, let's get on with the video. I'm going to be looking at Disney's Carnotaurus first and assess both the strengths and weaknesses. Disney's Carno was an absolute behemoth, with the only other things in the movie outclassing it in size being the sauropods. Its first appearance in the movie was when it was stalking a nesting herd of various dinosaurs instead of a forest, where it brutally took down a Pachyrhinosaurus, which made me wonder how this was a children's movie. It dwarfs the female Pachy and pretty much everything else except for the said sauropods. Their size is one that's heavily debated but also kinda easy to determine. Now I've seen and heard some atrocious size estimates for these guys. Some people are actually saying they were 5 tons, but most keep them between 9 and 20. But let's actually see how much they weigh. Well, Aladar, despite looking small in the movie, is around 29 feet long and 4.5 tons. And Kron, despite not being that much longer than Aladar, is decently heavier. You can see just how much more bulky Kron is than Aladar because he's more mature and has a little dull horn in his snout, which I never got. So he possibly approaches 6 tons in weight. Now look at the size of Disney's Carnotaurus compared with him. When it comes to height, Aladar is somewhere between 10 and 12 feet on all fours, and the Carnotaurus towers over him, so I'd give the Carnotaurus a height of 17 or 18 feet. When it comes to weight, the sizes are all over the place, but one thing to note is that these Carnotaurus are built like a T-Rex. As a matter of fact, they were supposed to be T-Rexes before the creators decided to make them Carnotaurus. If a real Carnotaurus was somehow scaled to the length or even the height of Disney's Carnotaurus, it wouldn't be more than 8 tons. For the weight, I used this scale from a user on Quora called Ugur Khan. Oh, I hope I didn't say that wrong. Which actually showed the different calculations used to determine the size of these animals compared to the base model of Sue. Overall, the weight came up to 25 tons. While I do agree with the way the weight was determined, it still feels a bit iffy. Like this happens all the time, even with determining theropod sizes today. So I'm not saying that what the guy found is wrong, because it definitely could be right. I just think it should be a bit smaller based on the comparison of the other dinosaurs. So for me, I give Disney's Carno a length of 15 meters, a height of just under 6 meters, and a weight of 13 tons. To be honest, part of me wants to say bigger, but I'll use the more conservative numbers so it doesn't become too unfair. I gotta say that like in Primal with Fang, the Carnotaurus size does fluctuate in some shots that make it seem outrageously massive, so that's another thing to note. In terms of strength, these guys have an unforeseen amount of it. They can drag Iguanodon with little resistance, and the smaller one survived the roof of a cave falling on it and it just broke out and went on its day. But one thing which seems to be overlooked is just how it manhandled Kron. This Carno, the smaller one of the pair mind you, bait Kron on his back and threw him more than 40 feet away into a boulder. Like that's throwing an average African elephant. Even a simple headbutt sent Kron's sister airborne for a brief while. Now when he fought Aladar in the end, it was kinda funny. In his mind he really said let's go band for band. When Aladar tail slapped him, he did the same thing to Aladar and launched him into the air. But for him to just casually pick up Kron and launch him is the best one. That's an incredible amount of lifting strength and bite force. In terms of durability, we only have one real feat, but it is a pretty significant one. During the cave scene, when they found out where the stragglers were, the top of the cave collapsed on them after they were hit into a stone pillar. One did die, but the other one did survive. and that's due to the big one taking most of the debris. With that said, the one that did survive still took a beating. At least 20 tons of debris fell and buried it, and it managed to break out. Granted, it did have a little limp, but that magically went away very quickly. In like a day, we see it up and running at top speed, dodging and weaving on rocks as though nothing happened. Something like that should have it bleeding through every hole of its body from internal damage, but it remains unaffected. For its size and bulk, it's extremely nimble. With no arms to grab on for support, it was able to launch itself up a cliff, jumping from stone to stone, and it was doing this faster than Kron, who had front limbs for more balance. It does that pretty fast too. Not sure if that specific Carnotaurus was the one in the intro, but it can easily catch up to a Pachyrhinosaurus running for cover. While ordinarily I would say that this isn't really a good feat because a Pachy's top speed in real life is around 50 miles per hour, because they can't gallop in the traditional sense. Like hippos and rhinos, they would need to do some type of trot when they're going really fast. The one in the movie was able to full on gallop like a horse, so I'd say it approaches 80 miles per hour or more, which could give this massive Carno top speed of 25 miles per hour roughly. Not faster than Usain Bolt, but still way faster than any real life megatheropod. If a real T-Rex tried to run like that Carnotaurus with both of its feet off of the ground, its hip would shatter. Endurance wise, we don't get a lot, but these animals can travel for hundreds of miles in the desert without food for long periods of time when tracking the herds. Now we start to get into some disadvantages with the animal going forward. When it comes to battle intelligence, it's about average. It knows when to back down and can target specific points on whatever they're fighting to easily put it down. But that's about it. We don't see any real tactical moves from them other than traveling in a pair, which could just be a breeding pair. And they are very prone to being pushed back. One was hit with so much force that it broke the stone pillars, and Aldar was able to push it a good distance, almost setting it off a cliff. But granted, a Iguanodon with a running start would probably force anyone back. But that's what I love about Disney's Carnotaurus the most. Not the design, its behavior. This might be the only dinosaur villain in quotation marks that actually behaves like an animal. It only takes down one item and doesn't kill for sport. Unlike some predators today, they follow migratory herds because it's their source of food, not because of anything malicious. Even after Aldar was responsible for its mate's death, kind of, and getting the herd to stand up for it, the Carno didn't really hold any type of malice. It just backed off and targeted Kron because he was isolated and didn't have a herd to support him, which is something animals like tigers and lions do today. The only reason it fought Aldar was because he was in the way, and it wouldn't have been able to do anything else until Aldar was put down. In the intro, it's weird that it didn't just grab the baby Parasaurolophus, but I guess that would be the last time for a while until it got to hunt like that, so it went after something more sizable. Okay, so any normal person would say that it's behaving how an animal should behave. The only thing villainous about them is their size. Alright, look, I'm not here to start any beef or anything. I actually watched some of the videos of the person who said this, but calling the Carnotaurus a coward is madness, bro. I'm not gonna say what video I'm talking about, but I think you all know what video I am talking about. In that video, the guy said that the Carnotaurus is a coward because it got intimidated by a couple of Iguanodon and a Triceratops. First of all, that is not just a couple of Iguanodon, and there is no Triceratops. I saw Styracosaurus. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's a Triceratops in the entire movie. Look, we all make mistakes. Like in one of my videos where I called the Spinosaurus a quadruped, you guys in the comments let me know that the Spinosaurus, despite its shape, could still walk on two legs. And what would you know? Currently, most research still accepts that the Spinosaurus could walk on two legs somehow. But mistaking a Styracosaurus for a Triceratops, like I could get it if it was a Nosauceratops and you got confused because of the two front horns, but they weren't those two front horns facing forward on the frill. And he said it so confidently too, like it's a Triceratops. And even if it was a Triceratops, it's still not just one, it's more than a dozen of them in a herd rioting. So calling the Carnotaurus a coward because it wisely decided to back off while more than 100 dinosaurs are advancing towards it doesn't make sense. Why would it charge directly into a massive wall of bone and horn? It wisely backed off and saw an isolated individual and went for that. Like if you're calling the Carnotaurus a coward, then you're calling a lion or a tiger a coward. Because a large male lion, no matter how strong, usually immediately gets out of the way when a herd of Cape buffalo is advancing towards it. But one-on-one, even though it's rare, a single male lion can take down a buffalo if isolated without the herd for backup. So yeah, that was a Styracosaurus, not a Triceratops, and the Carnotaurus was not a coward for simply wanting to survive another day and instead going for Kron. It behaved how any normal predator would. Not saying this to hate, just wanted to point it out because even with statements like that, fans would still go into the comment sections of others and proudly announce statements like that thinking it's correct or fact just because their favorite creator said it. Okay, I think you guys have an overall understanding on the Carno's abilities. It doesn't have the battle intelligence of some of the Jurassic Park theropods and is prone to being pushed back, but it still has a lot going on for it despite those little flaws. But will its size and raw power be enough to contend with some of the most durable and manipulative dinosaurs in the Jurassic franchise? Both Isla Nublar and Soren are home to their own set of monsters, specifically the megatheropods. Some can get hit by planes and take no damage, and others can straight up trick entire groups of people on multiple occasions. The Carnotaurus is bigger than all of the park's theropods, but while rare, size doesn't always matter. It matters a lot in some cases, but other factors can come into play. The carnivores here are very powerful, and some have incredible feats of strength despite being smaller. Rexy was able to slam the Indominus Rex into buildings and hit a small Carno so hard it tumbled onto the floor. And the Indominus Rex was able to send a truck into the air with just one swing of her arm and tore down a zipline tower. Not to mention her throwing Rexy down to the floor and keeping her pinned until Blue came in. Then there's some smaller feats like her bursting through a bullet-resistant aviary and crushing the gyrosphere with her bite force alone. Yes, she did in fact pierce the gyrosphere before slamming it onto the ground. Hell, she herself is bullet-resistant, even Owen's rifle didn't make her react. Aston 87 has his fair share of strength feats too. He tore a plane apart and overpowered T-Rexes more than once, straight up holding one in place as if it was nothing and then snapping its neck, and in an often overlooked instance was able to hold back an industrial sliding door for a few seconds with just one hand. That's tons of force being held open with just one limb. As for the green dragon Zeb, he's stated to be able to take down Sauroposeidon Poseidon I think, and he killed the T-Rex faster than any dinosaur in the franchise so far. Even though Rexy was the aggressor in the final battle, he still took her out with no injuries. Durability wise, I'd say most have better durability than Carno due to their feats. Rexy got absolutely bullied by the Giganotosaurus and the Indominus, being slashed constantly and even having her head stomped on by a 10-ton theropod and getting back up to fight. The Indominus and Spinosaurus took straight up war weapons and were able to go on about their day. The Indom tanked the aftershock of an RPG and took bullets from both Owen and the firing squad. Yes, during that scene some of the bullets definitely connected despite her fleeing. Oh hey, would you look at that? The Indominus ran away from a bunch of things smaller than her. Guess that makes her cowardly too, huh? Sorry, but I had to bring it up again. Like, both of these animals knew that both parties could seriously damage them if they went forward, so it's unfair to call one a coward and the other not. Anyway, she took that and was thrown into buildings constantly while enduring the bites of the strongest T-Rex in the franchise while simultaneously getting torn apart by a raptor. She stood on business too. Despite all of that, she was willing to keep on going until the bite of 87 happened. Speaking of 87, he probably took more damage than any megatheropod. He got shot by military-grade artillery in the beginning of Jurassic Park 3 and got its sail hit with a plane but didn't show any sign of damage. The sail is literally supposed to be the most vulnerable part of this thing, and yet, even when it fell directly on it, the sail remained undamaged. Sheesh. 87 also has the most experience fighting other large dinosaurs. He can effortlessly tank the bites of T-Rexes despite having a relatively thin neck, and took a full-on hit to the face with a Kentro's tail and got up unbothered. Any normal animal would be on the floor with spikes in their skull. We don't see much durability feats from Zem because usually he's dominating the fight and doesn't take any damage, but he's the most armored out of the bunch, so he definitely can take a beating if it comes down to it. One thing Disney's Carno has over all of them though is speed. Note, I'm talking about all of these guys at their largest. Rexy in Jurassic Park was able to run more than 30 miles per hour because she was smaller, around 7 tons. But now that she's more than 9 tons, she can't outrun a fit person. The same goes for all the other megatheropods to be honest. They can't catch up with people they chase, but they do have more stamina, so in an open field they could catch any person to be honest. But coming back in the franchise's favor, most likely have more intelligence and battle IQ than the Carnotaurus. I won't just bash the Carno and say that it has no battle intelligence because it likely did compete with members of its own species for food and territory at times. The same with any animal, and is smart enough to assess situations to determine whether an action should be taken or not. But I think it's about time we throw Disney's Carnotaurus into the fray. I'll cover anything else I missed during this period. We're gonna drop it on Isla Nublar first. When it comes to prey selection, it shouldn't be a problem. It doesn't roar to announce its presence like the Jurassic carnivores, and we've seen just how capable it is when it comes to setting an ambush. Plus, its size and power should allow it to bring down any herbivore it wants basically. Any smaller carnivores wouldn't mess with the thing, they'd straight up run for the hills. Only thing stupid enough to attack it would be the Scorpius, and it will be put down without much issue. But what about the apexes? I think Rexy's interaction with the Carno would be interesting. There's two things that could happen here. The first scenario is that both of them have an encounter and just tolerate each other's presence. Sure, they might have a little scuffle or even some aggressive roar exchange, but I feel like the Carno would be a little weary because it's taken injury into account, and Rexy would probably think the same. But in the events that they do have a deathmatch, it would most likely happen due to Rexy not tolerating another large carnivore in her territory, and the Carno deciding that any theropod 4 tons lighter should be put down easily. Almost immediately there would be a power difference, and both of these guys have shown to only use their mouths as weapons, except for the Carno. The Carnotaurus has the height advantage, which makes accessing Rexy's neck more easy. With that said, Rexy is more durable than he is and has a better chance of escaping the Carno's bite. And like all Rexes, Rexy's head is a weapon that can be used to push the Carno back, allowing for her to briefly have the upper hand and grab its neck. But if I'm going to be honest, I'm going to have to give the dub to Disney's Carnotaurus. Won't be easy, but he more than likely will win. While Rexy's species is capable of picking up big theropods like this Rex that picked up a 4 or 5 ton allo and slammed it onto the floor, it wasn't as flawless as the Carno. The Carnotaurus also can headbutt and he has horns, but that's not likely to pierce Rexy's hide. And a hit from its tail could temporarily stun Rexy long enough for the Carnotaurus to bring her down. But as I said, it's going to be a decently fair fight. Rexy is more intelligent and has a good amount of battle IQ, added to the fact that she is a T-Rex and has a strong bite force. But this Carnotaurus also has the same attributes. Its build is literally that of a T-Rex but with a more robust Carnotaurus head. So yeah, in my opinion, Disney's Carnotaurus takes the dub because of its power boost due to size. The same probably can't be said for the Indominus. There is no peace between these two. Unlike Rexy, the Indominus wouldn't state a reason. She is mixed with Carno, but unlike Toro, this Carno probably won't understand. But to be honest, the Indominus' pride would lead it to just charge the Carno no matter what and try to bring it down. Yes, the Carnotaurus still is bigger, but the Indominus has one thing it doesn't: usable arms. Those arms have launched trucks and helped it tear down entire towers. Like with Rexy, the Indominus would likely use its claws to try and pull the Carno off of her, which the Carno would likely do, since I imagine sickles being run down your face wouldn't feel pleasant. There she would then try to topple it like she did Rexy, and we've seen what a 4.5 ton iguanodon was able to do, so the Indominus should be able to at least make him trip, and then grab its neck and finish the job. She's also much more intelligent than the Carno and would actively look for weak points to target so she can get the upper hand. The only thing I'd say she has to watch out for is the Carno's height advantage. So despite being heavier, I still lean more towards the Indominus because she is more durable, smarter, and has better weapons. And even though she was slightly smaller than Rexy, was able to quickly turn the tides when she got her arms into play. I mean, there's also the chance that this thing could just rock the Indom shit as well and just murk it. Like, have you guys ever seen those videos of pit bulls latching onto other dogs, and despite the people kicking it in the ribs and hitting it, the pit bull just doesn't let go? If Disney's Carno were to do the same thing here, then the hybrid is cooked. Regardless of who wins, the winner is going to be heavily injured. There's also Red on Nublar, but there isn't much to talk about. Disney's Carno wipes the floor with Red. She has notoriously bad durability. A 2-second bite from Rexy put her down, so Disney's Carno shouldn't have much of an issue. The only thing she has above the Carno is her speed, because she is currently the fastest megatheropod and can keep up with the vehicle, but that won't really help her here. On to Isla Sorna. Same thing applies here with the prey selection. There likely isn't anything it couldn't bring down, and the raptors and ceratosaurs wouldn't dare get in its way. But I sure do know one thing that will. It may not be a T-Rex, but Acid 87 will definitely look for this thing the moment he senses the Carno's presence, and like the Indominus, a fight is bound to happen. The Spinosaurus is just way too hyper aggressive. Going in, the Carno would be confused onto what the Spinosaurus is and probably intimidated by the seal, but it would quickly get over that the moment the Spino gets in its face. The Spinosaurus may have been the tallest theropod in the franchise, but it's still shorter than Disney's Carno, so it likely won't get the opportunity to grab its neck like it did the bull. But it does have experience on its side, and will try to somehow get the Carno down to its level. However, Disney's Carno is so massive that even if the Spinosaurus bit its neck while it's laying down, it could partially lift the Spinosaurus into the air and throw it off balance. I mean, 87 could hold it in place for a few seconds at most. Remember, this animal could propel its massive size up a cliff without any problem, so shaking off a Spinosaurus likely won't be an issue. 87's claws are still a problem though, and so is his tough skin. Honestly, it would be a battle of durability and technique versus power and size. While size doesn't always equal a win, especially when talking about Jurassic dinosaurs, it does here, but barely. Both of these guys have crazy endurance and have traveled hundreds of miles and kept on fighting despite being heavily damaged in both movies. But Disney's Carnotaurus simply takes the edge. The main reason being that I don't think the Spinosaurus could snap its neck. It's not so much the power required to snap the neck, but instead if Acid 87 can keep the Carnotaurus still enough to break its neck. Disney's Carnotaurus is 5 tons heavier than Bull, so it's a lot more dinosaur to keep still. With this outcome, the Carno will more than likely be limping away after taking care of 87, but he isn't the only megatheropod here. If he runs into Buck and Doe and they see him as a threat to Junior, they are going to kill him. He's bigger than both individually, but both of those Rexes combined have a weight of 16 tons. And if both flank him, it's over. Either that or they will just act aggressive and chase him out of the area to protect their chick. And since this Carno behaves like a real animal, he will definitely back down to avoid an unnecessary fight. Speaking of real animals, what would happen if it met Zeb? This folks, this right here has the chance of being the most peaceful interaction so far. Both of these things behave like actual animals just wanting to survive. What's likely to happen 90% of the time is one being chased off by the other if it's a dispute for food. And at most a small scuffle like what Zeb had with Rexy will take place. But more often than not, Zeb will see a larger Carno and back down most of the time, and the Carno will let him walk away. But I know you guys still want to see a fight, so in a scenario where food is very scarce, which it kinda already is in Bison Valley, and they both have to do an all-out fight, Disney Carno still wins, but it will be more difficult than the fight with the Spinosaurus. Now in other videos I've said that the Spinosaurus beats the Giga, and I still stand by that, but this is one of those cases where the traits of something that would lose to something else has a chance of beating something that would beat the thing it couldn't take down, if you get that. The Spinosaurus does have power, but also relies on its arms and strategy. Zeb is all power and can use that brawn with other large theropods. We see this when mid-battle he grabs from one of Rexy's leg and throws her over, which is something I don't think the Spinosaurus could do. But in the end, when it's bar for bar in terms of power, Disney's Carnotaurus still takes the win. Zeb has claws too, but they don't have much range like the Indominus or the Spinosaurus, so it's gonna have a harder time grabbing the Carno. And despite being bigger, this Carno is more agile, so it can dodge and weave. Zeb will definitely do some damage though, and the Carno will lay right there after it wins to catch itself or simply try not to die from blood loss. So overall this Carno should be alright. In Nublar it has a small chance of keeping the peace with Rexy, but when it comes to the Indominus he can be killed, although it kinda could go either way. Yet even if it does, I feel like it would die after the injuries. But if it doesn't, then Nublar should be a walk in the park. On Sorna is where the challenges start to pop up. Once 87 is dealt with, there's a question on whether or not Buck and Doe would tolerate his presence or not. Any individual Rex would not be a match for it, but as a pair, they would be able to drive the Carno off or even kill it. But if they do tolerate each other, then it should be fine. They'd live in somewhat of a thin truce, and with that out of the way, nothing else can challenge him. Biosyn Valley would be kinda worse though. Not because of Zeb, because those two probably won't even touch each other. The issue is with food, because deer can't feed that Carno. The Seri is there, but once the Seri is eaten, there's not much left. And if it enters human settlements, he'll be killed for eating people, or worse, captured by Dr. Wu. So overall, the Carno should be fine on both islands if he manages to keep peace with the Rexes, because there's no negotiation between the Spinosaurus and the Indominus. By the way, this is the smallest size I placed on the Carno. If I were to use the more accepted large sizes like the 15 tons, then there's nothing that could stand up to it, except for the Rex Spear. And if the 25-ton weight was used, then even they would get murked. But let me know what you guys think. Would Disney's 13-ton villain thrive on the parks, or would he get put down by the franchise's smaller and more durable monsters? For all of you asking for hollow birds, don't worry, that's coming this week. So don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.